Welcome back to Narrations. Tonight's story is magical, funny, emotional, and deeply human, a journey about believing in what we cannot see, rediscovering love through the eyes of a child, and learning that sometimes the greatest gifts come when we least expect them. This is the Santa Claus, where a single moment changes an entire life. Snow drifts quietly across a peaceful suburban neighborhood on Christmas Eve. Houses glow with warm lights. Chimneys breathe curling smoke into the icy night air, and carols float softly from distant windows. Inside one of those homes, Scott Calvin, a charming but self-centered toy executive, prepares dinner in a chaotic rush. His kitchen is a battlefield of burnt food and smoke alarms, evidence of a life too busy and scattered to slow down. Scott is divorced, and tonight his young son Charlie is staying with him for Christmas dinner. Charlie arrives reluctantly, clinging to his mother Laura, unsure about spending the night with a father he feels distant from. Laura's new husband Neil, a psychiatrist known for his overly logical view of the world, dismisses the magic of Christmas as childish fantasy. Neil insists that Santa isn't real and encourages Charlie to accept that Christmas magic is just imagination. Scott tries hard to impress Charlie with a festive dinner, but everything falls apart comically: the burnt turkey, the ruined kitchen, the failed recipes. Eventually, they end up at a lonely Denny's restaurant full of single fathers and disappointed kids. Charlie stares down at his food, shoulders slumped, quietly wishing Christmas felt happier. Later that night, Scott tucks Charlie into bed, where the boy whispers sadly that he wishes things could be different. He wishes his family could feel whole again. Scott promises that this Christmas will be special, even if he isn't sure how. They fall asleep, until a loud crash jolts them awake. Thundering footsteps shake the roof. A heavy thud vibrates the entire house. Charlie gasps, eyes huge, and races to the window. Scott follows him outside into the swirling snow. On the roof, they see a man in a red suit stumbling clumsily, caught in the glow of moonlight. Scott shouts up angrily, startling the figure, who slips, loses his balance, and tumbles off the roof into a snowbank below. The world falls silent. Charlie kneels beside the figure, horrified. Scott rolls him over, and freezes. The man is dressed as Santa Claus, beard full and real, suit heavy and trimmed with white fur. In the snow beside him lies a small business card that reads, "If something should happen to me, put on the suit. The reindeer will know what to do." Charlie looks toward the roof, where 8 reindeer stand waiting, stomping impatiently, sleigh glistening with frost under the moon. Scott shakes his head in disbelief, refusing to accept the impossible. But Charlie's eyes fill with a growing, trembling awe. Scott reluctantly puts on the suit, trying to calm Charlie's excitement. The moment the suit is on his shoulders, the sleigh pulls forward sharply, lifting them into the air, soaring above rooftops and glittering city lights. Scott screams in panic, clutching the sides. Charlie laughs with joy, wind roaring past them, snow sparkling like stars. The sleigh lands on rooftops across town. A magical sack expands endlessly, filling itself with gifts. And Scott, against every logical thought in his adult brain, finds himself sliding down chimneys, delivering presents, guided by instincts he doesn't understand. Charlie watches proudly, eyes wide with belief. Scott trembles between fear, shock, and wonder. When the night's deliveries are done, the reindeer sprint into the sky, carrying them to the North Pole, where a hidden entrance opens beneath the snow. Massive candy cane gates swing apart to reveal a breathtaking world of glowing lights, swirling machinery, and thousands of busy elves welcoming Santa home. The elves cheer wildly as Scott steps from the sleigh, believing he has returned from his yearly mission. Confused and overwhelmed, Scott is escorted inside by Bernard, the head elf, stern, wise, and endlessly patient. Bernard reveals the truth behind the card: what happened tonight wasn't an accident. It was a transformation. The moment Scott put on the suit, he accepted the Santa Claus, a magical contract binding him to become the new Santa for all future Christmases. Scott refuses to believe any of it, insisting he is not Santa, that this is a misunderstanding, that none of this can be real. But the magic is already in motion. Charlie beams with pride as he watches his father, convinced that something extraordinary is beginning. Bernard leads Scott to a warm bed beneath glowing Christmas lights, telling him that everything will make sense in time. Scott falls asleep exhausted, unsure what is real and what is dream. Morning arrives. Scott wakes up in his own bed back home, believing the entire night was nothing more than imagination. But when he looks in the mirror, something is different. His face looks softer. His stomach noticeably rounder. And a thick white beard begins to grow instantly, unstoppable. Charlie watches, eyes shining, whispering, "You are Santa." Scott's world tilts. Nothing is the same anymore. The magic he spent a lifetime ignoring is now growing inside him. And soon, the entire world will see it. Scott tries desperately to continue his normal life, but everything begins spiraling out of control. At work, his employees stare in shock as Scott rapidly gains weight in just hours, his belly expanding dramatically as if inflated by magic. He insists he hasn't changed his diet, although he suddenly devours cookies, hot chocolate, and candy canes with uncontrollable delight. Doctors run tests but find nothing medically wrong, baffled by the instant growth of a full white beard that regrows immediately every time it's shaved. His heart beats with unusual calm, his skin glows rosy, and his cheeks redden like winter apples. The doctor suggests reducing stress, but Scott knows something far beyond science is happening. Meanwhile, Charlie refuses to stay quiet. He proudly tells Laura and Neil that his dad is Santa now, that everything is real and magical and beautiful. He describes the North Pole in vivid detail, speaks about reindeer, elves, and Bernard, and talks about flying in the sleigh. His joy radiates like Christmas lights. But Laura and Neil become alarmed. To them, Charlie is slipping into fantasy, losing touch with reality, clinging to a dream that could break him. They blame Scott, believing he is encouraging Charlie's imagination in a harmful way. Neil especially pushes hard, convinced that destroying belief is an act of responsibility. He reminds everyone that he stopped believing at age 3 when Santa didn't bring the gift he wanted. Scott tries to protect Charlie, trying not to feed the conflict, but every attempt only increases tension. At Charlie's soccer game, parents stare as Scott arrives wearing bright red clothes, weight transformed, hair snowy white, beard shining, children running to sit on his lap instinctively to share their Christmas wishes. Scott is stunned by how naturally he responds, gentle, patient, full of love. One mother whispers, "He's Santa!" But Laura watches horrified, believing Scott is losing control, losing reality, losing himself. Soon after, Laura and Neil petition the court to restrict Scott's visitation rights, claiming that his behavior is harming Charlie. Papers arrive officially suspending Scott's time with his son. The ruling devastates both of them. Charlie sobs, begging them not to do this. Scott holds him tightly, whispering apologies through tears he cannot stop. The world grows heavy, silent, cold. Christmas draws near, and Scott isolates himself, unsure of who he is anymore, afraid of hurting Charlie, afraid of magic he cannot deny. He sits alone in his room, staring into space. Then, one night, Bernard appears from thin air, snapping Scott back into wonder. He tells Scott that it is time to fully accept his destiny, time to fly the sleigh again. Charlie, hidden nearby, leaps into his arms, smiling through tears, hugging Bernard like an old friend. Bernard takes them both to the North Pole, where elves cheer the return of Santa. Scott dons the red suit completely and without fear. The transformation completes itself, sparkling through his eyes, straightening his shoulders, filling him with deep purpose. He is Santa now, heart and soul. Christmas Eve arrives. Snowflakes swirl in moonlight as the reindeer leap from the launch pad, sleigh cutting through clouds like a streak of fire and ice. Charlie rides beside his father, calling out addresses, helping navigate rooftops, laughing with pure joy. Scott moves with grace and certainty, delivering gifts to sleeping children, filling stockings, leaving warmth behind wherever he goes. But back home, police search desperately for Charlie, believing he has been kidnapped by Scott. News spreads across the city, helicopters circle the sky, and the world holds its breath. When Scott lands back in town, the police swarm him, surrounding the sleigh, dragging him away in handcuffs while Charlie cries out for them to stop. But a roar of sleigh bells echoes overhead, and reindeer descend to rescue them, bursting through the station roof, lifting Scott back into the sky. Moments later, Scott lands outside Laura and Neil's home, stepping gently toward them as snow falls softly around him. He removes his hat slowly, eyes glowing with sincerity, and speaks not like a legend, but like a father. "I'm still me. I'm still Scott. And I love Charlie more than anything in the world. I never meant to cause pain. I only wanted him to believe in something good. Something magical." Laura looks at him, really looks, and sees the truth shining in his eyes. She realizes the mistake. She sees the beauty of belief glowing in her son's face, the first real happiness in his eyes in months. She breaks into tears, apologizing softly. Neil watches silently, humbled, his certainty melting. For the first time, he allows himself to imagine possibility, to feel wonder again. Laura signs the papers returning full custody access to Scott, handing back the rights she took away. Scott hugs Charlie tightly, both crying with pure relief. The sleigh lifts into the sky again, soaring over the glowing city, every rooftop sparkling with light. Children peek out windows, pointing and cheering. The world erupts in joy. Laura and Neil watch from below, stunned and smiling, warmth flooding their hearts. Charlie shouts to them from the sleigh, "Merry Christmas!" Santa's voice echoes, joyful and true, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." The sleigh bursts upward through a swirl of snow and starlight, disappearing into the stunning horizon of Christmas morning. And from that moment forward, Scott Calvin is remembered not just as Santa, but as a man who learned that the greatest magic in the world is believing, especially when believing feels impossible. Because Christmas begins in the heart. If you enjoyed this narration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Narrations, where Christmas movies are retold with warmth, nostalgia, and cinematic emotion.